Okay, so let's talk about something that's running your life right now, probably without you even knowing it. It's this deep, hidden program that makes choices for you long before your conscious mind even gets a say. And I'm not talking about just following rules. This is about a kind of unconscious obedience that has literally shaped who you think you are.
This right here, this is the truth we've got to start with. You are, right now, precisely as obedient as you have been trained to be. It's a pretty bold statement, I know, but here's why it matters so much. Until you see this unconscious programming, you can't actually begin to reclaim your real freedom. So here's a really common belief we get wrong. We tend to think we obey because we're afraid of getting in trouble, right? Fear of punishment. But the truth is actually much, much deeper. We obey because our very sense of identity has gotten all tangled up with compliance. We've been taught on a subconscious level that our safety and even our sense of self depends on just fitting in.
All right, so let's pull this invisible obedience out into the light. The big idea here is that this isn't about one single decision. Oh no, it's an unconscious ritual, a performance that you and we go through every single day. And the crazy part? We never even consciously signed up for it.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. This is not a failure of character. It's not you being weak or lacking willpower. It's biology. At its core, this kind of obedience is a survival reflex, hardwired into our systems, and it makes decisions for us way before our conscious brain ever gets involved. So to really get why this reflex is so ridiculously powerful, we have to look back, way back. Think of your nervous system like a computer, and it's running on this 200,000-year-old software. It's a program that was coded for a world that doesn't really exist anymore, a world where your actual survival depended on fitting in with your tribe. 200,000 years. For that long, the human brain was being hardwired with one simple, brutal equation: social acceptance equals survival. This isn't some program from last year or even the last century. This is ancient code that still treats being liked as a literal matter of life and death.
And this right here, this is the core command of that software. Exile equals death. See, for our ancestors, being kicked out of the group was a death sentence. And even though our world is totally changed, that programming is still running. It's the reason why social rejection can feel like actual physical pain. Your brain is still screaming survival threat.
And look at the real-time physical effects of this. When you face social rejection, or even just the threat of it, your body's energy factories, your mitochondria, they literally produce less energy. So what does that mean? It means compliance, just going along to get along, becomes the path of least resistance. It's just biologically more efficient. That feeling of wanting to keep the peace isn't a weakness. It's your body trying to save energy and avoid the biological chaos of disapproval.
So, how does this ancient software actually show up in our modern lives? Well, the framework we're digging into here breaks it down into a 5-step ritual. You can think of it as an unconscious religion that we all practice every single day. And making this ritual visible, that's the key to finally breaking its hold on us.
So here they are, the 5 steps: the altar, the prayer, the scripture, the robes, and the offering. This metaphor is so powerful because it shows just how structured and, almost sacred this whole unconscious process can feel. So let's break each of these down.
So the whole ritual kicks off at the altar of rejection. This is built on our earliest experiences in life, where we first learned that love, approval, affection, none of it was guaranteed. It was conditional. It was something you had to earn by being good or behaving the right way. This core fear becomes the foundation for the entire ritual of obedience.
Step 2 is the prayer, which is silencing yourself. To dodge that fear of rejection, we start to suppress our own inner truth. This is that moment you don't speak up in a meeting even though you know you have the answer. Or when you just agree with a friend to avoid any kind of friction. You're sacrificing a little piece of your authentic self just to maintain that feeling of belonging. Okay, so once we silence our own inner compass, we need a new guide, right? And that's when we turn to external referencing. This becomes the scripture for our little ritual. That question, what do they think of me? How am I coming across? It just starts running on an endless loop in our heads. Our focus completely shifts from our own internal truth to how we imagine we look from the outside.
This leads us straight to step 4, image management, or as we're calling it, putting on the robes for the ceremony. You start to build a persona, a character that you think will be acceptable to everyone else. This is you pretending you're happy at a party when you're actually miserable, or acting way more confident than you feel to impress your boss. You hide any part of yourself that you think might threaten your spot in the group.
And finally, we get to step 5, the offering. This is where that whole internal ritual bursts out into an external action. You make the final sacrifice. You trade what you would authentically do for an action you believe will guarantee acceptance. This is the moment your true self gets pushed aside and the obedient self just takes the wheel.
When you put all these steps together, year after year, the result is, well, it's profound. Obedience is essentially identity theft. After a lifetime of performing this ritual, we forget who we even were before it all started. We start to believe the mask is our real face. We mistake a whole collection of survival strategies for our actual personality.
Okay, so that's the heavy stuff. But now for the most important part. How in the world do you break this trance? Well, the good news is it doesn't require some massive, painful change overnight. The key to breaking the whole thing is surprisingly simple. It actually comes down to asking yourself one powerful question. This question right here, it's a pattern interrupt. In any moment where you feel that pull to comply, to silence yourself, to put on the mask, just pause and ask this. What am I truly afraid will happen if I'm honest right now? Just asking it breaks the spell of that automatic ritual. It brings that unconscious fear into the conscious light, where you can finally choose a different response. Now, the goal here isn't to suddenly become this argumentative person or start fights everywhere you go. No. It's about practicing these small, tiny acts of truth. Expressing a slightly different opinion about a movie, setting a small, reasonable boundary with someone. Every single time you choose a tiny, authentic response over a compliant one, you're engaging in an act of micro-defiance. You're literally rewriting that old, ancient code. So here's what that can look like in real life. Say no to a small request that you just don't have the energy for. When you feel that urge to perform, to put on that happy face for everyone, just try staying completely still for a moment and don't do it. But the most critical part is this. You have to then allow your nervous system to feel that you survived. You have to give it new data, new proof that disobedience does not equal death. And as you start to gather this new proof, you begin to realize something pretty mind-blowing. That compliant, people-pleasing personality that you always thought was just you, it might just be a defense system you've been wearing for so long you forgot it wasn't your real face. And the real you? It's waiting right underneath.
And that's really what this all comes down to, isn't it? You weren't born to shrink yourself down so that other people could feel more comfortable. You were born to become. And the path to becoming who you truly are starts with that first, small, maybe even shaky act of telling your truth. So what truth will you tell today? Because every time you do, you're not just getting your own freedom back, you're showing everyone else what's possible too.